1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Crazy Chester's Radio Hour. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Crazy Chester's Radio Hour. Yeah, Crazy Chester's Radio Hour. Crazy Chester's Radio Hour.
Welcome to the Crazy Chester Radio Hour. This is the first episode of season 2 here, 34th episode, and I'm thrilled to have two guests back that have been on my show before, Buzz Cason and Billy Swan. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, good to be here. Yeah.
So
Good
we
be
have
here.
to
Again. Yep.
yeah, we have to celebrate the release of you guys' new record. It's your first joint album.
Absolutely, and we're pretty excited about it, actually.
So the concept is it's a tribute to Buddy Holly's timeless music. It's called Billy and Buzz Sing Buddy.
Right.
Out
right.
on Arena Recordings right now.
Right on Arena, and like I said, we're really happy about it, and it's a lot of songs maybe some people would be familiar with that he did, and some they may not be familiar with, but we were really happy the way it turned out, and we're ready for number 2.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
would you mind telling me a little bit what the origins of this project were, how it all started?
I think originally he and I talking about it, and then I went in and did a few things, or did a track, and Buzz came over and listened to it, and we talked about it then, and maybe that could have started, but we've been talking about it a while.
Probably about 5 years
Yeah,
since we started messing with it.
yeah, and
Just took our time finishing it.
yeah.
Now, although Buddy Holly's career was very brief due to his premature death, he had an amazing catalog.
Incredible.
I mean, in like 2.5 years, he wrote the book pretty much.
Yes.
Was
Yeah.
it hard for you guys to select the songs you recorded, or was that fairly easy?
It just
I know. Yeah, it was easy.
kind of came natural.
Yeah.
I think it just
Yes.
we both knew a lot of the songs, and Billy would come up with unique arrangements for a couple of them. I cite particularly Think It Over, which he did a real cool contemporary version of, and then we combined Rave On and Oh Boy into a medley, and Not Fade Away is done differently, and we I guess we probably had to focus a little on what we left off, like for instance Peggy Sue and That'll Be the Day. They're not on the project, but we kind of joked around in the background that, like Billy just said, we were looking for volume 2 already. So well, but everything that Buddy put out found success in that 2-year period or whatever it was, either as a solo record or as the Crickets, and probably never be repeated again by a solo artist.
And he was one of those artists, that you not only want to hear the A side, you want to hear the B side too,
Absolutely.
and you'd usually like it.
So, do you guys have any recollection of how it felt to hear Buddy's music for the first time, or hear it when it actually came out?
To me, it made me feel good, and it sounded to me like he was having fun recording them too, and that came through to me anyway. I loved his music. Just made you feel good.
Yeah, That'll Be the Day was my first big impact record. It was in the summer of '57 when I was with the Casuals. I just graduated from high school, and we went on the road, actually doing Grand Ole Opry shows, but we were the, quote, rock and roll portion of the show. We actually replaced the Everly Brothers, who had hit with Bye Bye Love, and they stuck us out there on the road to to kind of compensate for the void that the Everly Brothers left, and we opened the show with "That'll Be the Day." That was our opening number, and we gravitated towards Buddy and Crickets, and we would be playing shows in Texas and just barely miss seeing them. I never got to see them, never got to meet Buddy or anything, but we just fell in love with his music, and that guitar sound and everything was
Another thing I
predominant.
always liked about his records was the background, the picks or the Rhodes, whoever were doing it, the dum diddy dum dums, and
Yeah, and you know what's ironic about that, Billy, is Buddy didn't like a lot of those background vocals.
They overdubbed some of it
Jerry
after
Allison.
the fact too.
I don't know whether they did. Well, they would leave. They would do the tracks, and then Norman Petty would come in and put the picks or the roses on. And
but they had such a funky sound to them or something.
yeah, they had kind of
felt good.
kind of a budget Jordanaire sound or something, you know.
Right.
But I got to sing
Well, it
with.
was a blend that was pretty cool.
They did a rockabilly revival show. Jerry Naylor had something, who was a lead singer of the Crickets when I was producing them, had a rockabilly show down at the Ryman, and he signaled for me to come backstage, and I got to sing with the Roses. And I remember I asked one guy, I said, "What do you sing?" He said, "Bass." And I got to thinking, I never heard of bass on those records. But there was kind of a low part, you know. But it was fun, you know. I got to sing with them.
Yeah. The Beatles were quoted as the fact that it was actually, you know, some of it was credited to the Crickets or Buddy Holly and the Crickets, that changed their thinking a little bit of the importance of a band rather than just a solo act. Is that something that you guys that felt too? I mean, you were out with the Casuals at the same time. Were they was not just Buddy a role model, but also them being a band?
Yeah, I think they broke new ground. I think it gave encouragement to all of us who were out there, the new bands, and everybody was new in '57. Just that a band with harmonies could happen, could hit, you know. Of course, you had to have that lead singer, and that's what they had that so many of us didn't have, you know. So they were pioneers, that's for sure.
And Jerry Allison, their original drummer, has a guest spot on your record too, which I think is badass.
Yes, me too. I know when I first met him and Joe B. Malden, what a thrill it was, really. And some people, you know, you meet, you don't try not to show it, you know. But they're great guys, both of them. Well, lost Joe B. here recently, but Jerry, what a Joe he is.
Yeah, Jerry came down and played on Well All Right. It was a stick tambourine. It had a certain name to it.
Yeah.
I forget what he called it. A stickarine or something like that. He plays on it, and then on the album itself, there's a shot. Billy and I went down to visit with him in Lyles, Tennessee, which is about an hour from here, and on his farm. And we got a cool little picture with him that day, and we shared it on the album. And of course, I had been in the band with Jerry. I got asked to fill in. Jerry Allison, J.I. we call him, asked me to fill in for Jerry Naylor, who got sick, and I went on a 30-day tour of England with him, and then played around the country in California and Texas and different places for about a year. But so it was myself, Sonny Curtis, J.I., and Glenn D. Harden, who played a keyboard bass.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool too.
Yeah, when he asked me to do he came over to Liberty Records where I was working at the time, and J.I. and I had written a version of La Bamba called They Call Her La Bamba, which didn't hit over here, but it hit in England. And that was going to be the main single on this tour. And J.I. came in shaking his head. He said, "I don't know what I'm going to do. Naylor's sick and can't go on this tour, and we're leaving in about 2 weeks." And I thought, man, what are you going to do? And he came back the next day. He said, "I figured out what I'm going to do about the singer." Said, "I figured out who it is." I said, "Who's that?" He said, "You." I said, "Wow." I said, "Man, I hadn't done the Holly songs in a couple of years, you know." He said, "Well, everybody knows Buddy Holly song." So we would go over to Sonny Curtis's apartment, over to Sycamore. The apartment's right there in Hollywood. The studio was our record company was right there on Sunset Boulevard, and he was just kind of really not too far from the record company, but we would go there with the idea of maybe rehearsing. I'd sit over in the corner with a guitar, and everybody's partying and drinking beer, and Bobby Fuller of the Bobby Fuller Four was over there, and Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys was there, and I'd say, hey, y'all want to run through a tune? Oh, we'll get to it. Well, we never got to rehearsing, and we got on the plane going over, and Sonny Curtis sat next to me and pulled out a napkin and said, okay, Buzz, here's the set, and wrote down the set. And we went from there to Abbey Road to a press conference and played and that was our rehearsal. We played live for the press.
What year was that? No?
64. 1964, yeah.
So the Beatles had been recording in Abbey Road there.
Yeah.
Is that the studio that you...
Well, that was where the record company was, too, at that time, yeah.
Wow.
EMI Records, yeah.
Yeah. Now, there are not that many artists that have such a timeless thing to their music. I mean, Buddy and Chuck Berry and some of those early rock and roll guys, but there are not that many which music for 50 plus years has been redone and played, and there are a lot of very well known admirers too, like Paul McCartney.
Elvis maybe, somebody like that.
Yeah.
But
So,
I don't know who else. A lot of people have redone Elvis songs. In fact, I did an album of his things redone. But
I tell you who was on his way to being that type singer-songwriter that got taken from us too early was Eddie Cochran.
that's right.
yeah,
He had Summertime Blues, and
was he around Liberty when you were there?
no, he
Or was
passed
it
away in
before that?
58 or something like that.
Yeah, it seems like 60 or
Yeah,
something.
real early. Yeah, we got to play. Casuals got to play a show with him. 2 shows. We played Kansas City and St. Louis, and he was really nice. We backed him up. Well, he had Guybo. He had the bass. That's one of the first times we saw anyone playing a bass guitar quite like that with a pick, and he was nice. I have a photo somewhere with him which I cannot locate. One of these days, hopefully, I'll find it. But Joe South was on that show too, and a couple other folks. But Eddie was on his way to being that type impact artist. And it was a shame that he didn't have any more material. When I was with Liberty Records, they sent me down to Gold Star to go through multi-track tapes and see what I could find. And I went up in the attic and snooped around and found a few things, but they were mainly just demos, but we couldn't hardly make records out of them. I remember while I was down there one night looking through, and I met Phil Spector. He was there, and he said, I worked for Snuff Garrett. I was kind of a understudy to him, and he said, tell Snuffy hello. He was real nice. But I really thought Eddie was innovative and quite a rocker, too.
Yeah, and then Richie Valens died in the same plane crash as Buddy did, and although he was 16 or 17 when that happened, he had quite...
Oh, I think he would have went on to do some good things. Yeah, absolutely.
So my introduction to Buddy Holly's music was when I was a teenager. My mom took me to see the Buddy Holly musical. And I just fell in love with the music there. I maybe heard Not Fade Away and a couple other songs covered by other artists. And then we went to see that musical in London, and it was just mind-blowing.
I would love
and
to
I
see
bought
that.
like the guitar, chord book, learned all the songs. I can still play the Celeste instrumental of Every Day just by muscle memory, 25 years later.
Yeah, wow.
I got to see that same musical in London.
It was really good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the guy playing the lead was excellent. He actually came here to record one time after that. He was from Canada, but I think, I don't know whether that show got shut down some way or another. Either the family, Maria Lena or someone, I think, shut it down. But it was good.
Hey, sure.
Yeah, so it was never did anything over here.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it made it to
Just the
Broadway.
movie.
I don't believe.
There was a production in Germany too, I know that, but he was just so popular in England.
Yeah. Well, you know, Eddie Cochran and Gene Vincent, they're still very popular over there in Europe, France.
Billy Swan.
I don't know about him. But, no, I know Eddie Cochran, a lot of those early rockabilly guys, Carl Perkins, and are still very popular. And it's a shame, you know, it's not the same here that much anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of that 50s music was, I mean, I don't know, maybe because I was there, I just think it was just such great music.
That's why we've got 50s on 5
Yeah.
on XM, which Billy and I are doing. I had Alex Ward call me the other day from Memphis and wants to do an interview with Billy and I for 50s on 5. He particularly likes Thank You Buddy off the album, which surprised me.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned that because it is one of my favorites too, and we have not really talked about
I
it.
like that one too.
Because it's not just a collection of covers. You guys went in and wrote a song that is a tribute to Buddy musically and lyrically, kind of like a thank you letter to him almost. How did that come about?
Well, Buzz had the first few lines of it, and then after that, and he had the guitar, and Buzz was quite into it, and I was just kind of throwing out ideas, and if I said something that hit him, he would say, "Oh, that's good," but that was basically Buzz's idea. And
well, it was kind of our little thank you, little tribute to him, done from a kid's standpoint of what we remember. You know, it talks about riding around with your girlfriend, listening to Buddy, and to how he and the Crickets really stole the show, and how he played the Stratocaster guitar and all that stuff. You know, we tried to cram everything in positive about him that we could. You know, so it was just.
I never heard much that wasn't positive about Buddy Holly. Have you?
No.
Can you tell me now if you?
No.
I did meet his brother when I was working with Kristofferson. We did. Chris was the what would you call it? Went to Lubbock or Austin, I think it was, and Chris was the
MC
of the show. Yeah, and would introduce artists and but. Man, there was just a lot. Maria Lena was there. I really didn't get to talk to her. I feel bad about that. But his brother talked to him quite a while, and it was kind of cool. I really dug that. And it was a cool show.
I got to meet his dad, L.E. Holly. I remember there at he came out to Hollywood, out to the record company, Liberty Records, and got to meet him.
Okay, well, when I was working with Chet Atkins, Floyd Kramer, and Boots Randolph, I was their roadie. This is 65, 66, and we played in Lubbock, and somebody came to the door and told me, this was after the show, they said, there's somebody here would like to say hello to Chet. Would you check it out? And I went to the door, and it was Buddy Holly's dad, mother, and sister.
Oh, man.
And of course, when they told me who they were, I couldn't believe it. I was thrilled, you know. And I said, "Oh, Chet would love to meet you." You know, took them to him, and but that was kind of cool too.
Yeah. And Buzz, when you were working with the Crickets back in the early '60s, you went to Clovis, New Mexico once too to do a little bit of recording there at Norman Petty's studio, didn't you?
Yeah, we had recorded the first side I cut on the Crickets was Lonely Avenue, the old Ray Charles
Doc
song.
Holmes.
We did it up tempo, boom, 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 boom. Well, my room, it has no window, but sun comes shining on through. And of course, Ray did it slow, you know, but I loved that record. And Jerry Naylor sang lead on it. And I don't know whether we cut anything else in between there. We did a Crickets kind of a Beatles sounding album with a bunch of covers of Beatles songs. But Jerry said, you know what we ought to do? He said, we ought to go back to Clovis and cut just for the fun of it, just for the hell of it. And he said, of course, when we get there, Norman will have to have half publishing on what we write. I said, well, that's crooked, you know. But that's the way Norman was, you know. And so we went, and it was a trip, man. Our songs weren't very good that we cut there, so but it was kind of historic, just cutting in the same area where they originally cut. So it was fun. It was in the I think maybe that would have been in 62, 63, and he may have moved into a larger place after that. I'm not sure. I don't know the history of that studio, but I always thought it was funny when we'd get to a fade, Norman would just reach over there and just turn the fader down like you were turning down a fader on a light switch in the building. We started using that Norman Petty fade. Said, man, take it a little easy on that, you know. And of course, you didn't say anything to him. You just let him do his thing, you know.
I think Sam Phillips was known for quick fades too, wasn't he?
I think so.
Yeah. Oh, and let me go back to something. I think it was Buddy's sister. For some reason, I think they said it was. Maybe he didn't have a sister, but I think it was his sister. So I don't want to come off here as a liar here.
Yeah.
So I'll check that out tonight.
All right, sounds good. I can always fly back.
And we'll get together
let
on
it
that.
out. Yeah.
I'll tell you tomorrow.
I thought that's what you said originally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll start rumors here.
Yeah.
Right. You co-wrote some of those songs with J.I. Buzz. Do you remember anything about collaborating with him on that?
We had one called Now Hear This, which we cut in Clovis, and gosh, I can't think of the others. They Call My Baby La Bamba was the only one we had success with. It went top 20 in England, and we had on that session, we had Leon Russell playing piano and arranging the horns for us, and we cut it down at Gold Star, down in Santa Monica Boulevard. And gosh, you kind of blindsided me with that. I'll have to think about that, think about some of the songs we wrote.
But do you remember anything about how you guys collaborate? Would you get in the room and knock it out, or how? Do you remember how that went down?
We probably wrote over at J.I.'s house. He had a pretty cool little place in North Hollywood, and I think we wrote there rather than down at Liberty Records. And J.I.'s a pretty good acoustic player himself. In fact, I think I played his guitar on stage whenever we would play, if you want to call it playing. I always tell everybody I'm a guitar flogger. I don't really claim to be a player, but we'd write on different occasions. You know, it was kind of a thrown together thing. We never got too serious about it.
Yeah. So Buzz grew up here in Nashville. You, Billy, grew up in Missouri, and then went to Memphis to
Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
start your career. How did you guys first connect?
Buzz and I first met. You got back in '65, didn't you?
Yeah.
And I came to Nashville in '63, and it was just a small musical community there in 16th and 17th Avenue, basically, you know, and everybody was going through RCA Victor's parking lot or over to
Toonville.
CBS, yeah.
Toonville's where we
Toonville,
were.
which was Bill Justice's place. And a lot of, you know, everybody knew each other.
Yeah, you just kind of naturally
Yeah.
knew.
So I went back to the tape vault here at the studio earlier today, and I ran into a Billy Swan 4-track tape from 1967. Now, you guys started collaborating pretty soon after
Well,
that.
actually, the first record I did, Buzz and Chip Young did on me, and they did 3 records on me, and So what was 66?
And he's talking about 45s, talking about singles.
45, yeah.
Singles.
Which would probably been 66, 67, 68. And then I did something with Bobby, I think, in 70. And that was it. But 3 records y'all did with me.
And
Yeah.
1 or 2 came out on Elf Records too, or was that Rising Suns?
That's one that Bobby did on me. Then came The Lover.
Did that come out on Elf?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Bobby Russell, my great partner from '68, and Bobby loved Billy, and likewise, and he was the great ballad writer. Had written "Honey" and "Little Green Apples," and was it Then Came the Lover?
Then came The Lover.
Was that the same one?
Never really crossed my mind. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Is that the same one Roy Clark cut later on?
Somebody cut it.
Yeah,
later
I
on.
think it
a
was Roy
hit, I
Clark
think.
recorded
I,
that.
I wanted to say Gary Lewis, maybe, or somebody like that. Maybe not.
I'm pretty sure it was Roy Clark, but anyway, we just all knew each other, and we kind of Toonville Music, which was owned by Bill Justice, which is actually on the piece of property that now Reba McEntire's company is located now, was kind of hillbilly central, and we would all meet back there in the back and drink beer and carry on. And Bill Justice would go out to Miss Mary's barbecue. That was a special night when he'd do that. I don't know whether you were in on those or not, Billy, but he'd bring back a stack of ribs. For each man had his own thing of ribs, and now you talking about hot. Those things were hot, and he'd give you each guy had a loaf of bread, of white bread, and a 6-pack of Pepsis, on top of all the Jack Daniels and everything else we were drinking. But Bill Justice was a great character. I mean,
I know a couple times when he'd have a late session, I'd go down with him to somewhere on 1st or 2nd. You probably know what it is. There's a restaurant at Varello's Chili with spaghetti or something.
Varello's Chili, yeah.
Yeah, and we'd go down there 1:30 in the morning, whatever it'd be.
So I can't not do a show, have the 2 of you here, and talk a little bit about Funky Donnie Fritts while I got you here, since all of us are friends with Donnie, the 2 of you for 50 plus years probably.
Absolutely.
How did you guys meet Donnie, and would you mind talking a little bit about you guys' friendship with him, because he also just put out a record and covered Soldier of Love, which is one of Buzz's songs that he wrote with Tony Moon. How did you guys hook up with Donnie Fritts?
Well, from my standpoint, I think the first time I ran into Donnie, I had moved back from California in '64, and I had narrowed down where I was going to work between Bill Justice and Bob Beckham. Bob was running Raleigh Music,
Right.
Which was directly behind Bill Justice, ironic enough. And I was over there, and Donnie was writing for Bob, and that's where I first met him. I don't think we ever wrote anything together, but we became buddies then, and just been friends ever since. And Billy goes back probably.
Well,
even
no,
further.
the first time I saw Donnie, and I'd see him going in and out of Raleigh Music, and I was writing for Cedarwood Music, which was right next to each other,
next door.
And I'd see him, and I don't think we really didn't meet until Combine. And when Bob, when did Bob go to Combine, leave Shelby?
It would have been about maybe '66 or something like that.
Yeah.
They
Well-
took over. Fred Foster's Combine Music took over the Toonville office. Bill Justice wound up moving to California after I moved back.
and
then Bill moved to become an arranger in California.
I drove his cars out there for him, and
Oh, did you?
he says I beat his plane one time. But his plane was delayed, and anyway. But I'll tell you more about
Did you
that
tow
later.
the car? Did you tow one?
No.
Oh,
I
you
drove
made 2
both of them.
trips.
Yeah,
Made 2 trips.
yeah. Didn't stop. I stopped for hamburgers and get gas, and that was it.
coffee and take another pill or something.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, different times.
Yeah, but that's when and then when I guess Bob went to Combine, around 66 is when I first met him. And we had run around together, pal around, and go to the Holiday Inn over in West End, remember that? They had that 24-hour restaurant. And hang out, which it seems like everybody was doing that we knew at that time. So, Johnny Darrell worked over there at the desk for a while, and then Tommy Cash worked there for a while.
Johnny Darrell had the original Green Grass of Home,
and he had another one. I think it was Hickory Hollow's Tramp.
Yeah.
He was good at picking songs. Didn't he do one of Bobby's songs?
Yeah, I can't recall the
first
title.
First one to do it too, I think.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you and Donnie both worked with Kris Kristofferson for a long time after that.
In 70 until I worked about a year with Kris, and then I left and went back in 74. And then when they did Star Is Born, I got a band of my own, went on the road a little bit to Europe and all that. And then when that was over with, I went back to working with Kris. So.
Yeah, and let me ask you one more thing that's somewhat connected to that. Donnie and I went up to Lexington, Kentucky not too long ago, because there they have a festival where
Harry Dean Stanton,
they honored Harry Dean Stanton, who was a dear friend of both you and Donnie. Did you? I assume you met him at the Troubadour too with Kris.
Yeah.
But then you lived in L.A. for a long time.
Yes, and Harry lived right above me on Mulholland Drive, and I'd see him once or twice a week. Go up in the evening, we'd sit and talk and watch TV, whatever. But he was a great guy.
Did you ever make music together?
Yeah, we did. In fact, we were rehearsing up there one night, and it's a knock on the door, and who is it but Bruce Springsteen? He comes in, and I think we rehearsed about 3 hours. He sat there on the couch all the time and listened. Every now and then he'd say, "Whose song is that?" And but there'd be a lot of different other actors you'd run in up there. Sean Penn loved Harry, and he was something else. He was great.
Yeah, and he had a unique way of playing the harp too. I thought. He had this real, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Melancholic way to play the harp.
Yeah, we got a band together and went to Australia, and one story about Harry, this is kind of funny. We worked about 5 gigs for this guy, and I can't even think of his name, but maybe it's best I couldn't. But he's a nice guy. And they were selling T-shirts with Harry's name on it, and Harry wasn't aware of it until we got to the airport, and somebody in the band told him, or maybe they was wearing one. He said, "Where'd you get that?" And he said, "Oh, so-and-so selling them, that's doing your gig." And he says, "Well, I didn't get any money for it, And he makes a guy pay him some money at the airport for the whatever T-shirts he showed.
Not a royalty on one T-shirt.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I just noticed you can get the Billy and Buzz album on Amazon now.
You can get it
If you
on
want to
Amazon.
tell all your friends out there.
And all the, digital retailers like iTunes and Spotify and all that. Like, it's been up there since this past Friday. And all your good...
Yeah, we're here getting some play on Spotify. That's great.
Yeah, and hopefully all your good local record store can pick up a hard copy for whoever's still interested in owning a piece of music. And one thing I just want to mention real quick, and then won't keep going for too long, but we talked about Thank You, Buddy, and you guys writing that song. But that's not the only song the two of you collaborated on recently. There is one on Buzz's latest album, Passion, that the two of you co-wrote. And there's another song called Whatever Happened to My Rock and Roll Dream that the two of you demoed not too long ago. Which are, I mean, you can probably never completely take the history and your guys' influences out of it, but show somewhat of a different side of you guys. It's more contemporary side. How do you guys just like, knock it out and see what happens, or is that by choice that you try to write in a particular vein?
Well, usually one of us will have an idea.
Yeah,
just have a
happens,
title.
Whatever it happens,
And,
a title, or
with Just Is Gone, which I think is one of the most clever little tunes I was ever involved with. We got a lot of notoriety off the Passion album on that. But Billy was talking about, rock and roll is gone, kind of from a standpoint of the way we knew it. And he said, it's just as gone as rock and roll. And I thought, well, what about just as gone as all these things, Just as gone as a hula hoop and all these kind of things. And that's how that song was born. And I went down to Loxley, Alabama to Anthony Crawford's studio and did the track on it. And came back up here and put some overdubs here in the Creative Workshop in the Friendly Forest where we are right now. And that's the way that one was done. And then
if Buzz and I would sit and write every day for 2 or 3 hours, we'd come up with some good songs. I think if we wrote 10 songs, we'd probably write one that'd be really pretty good.
You guys just like too much going over to Cracker Barrel and have lunch, don't you?
Yeah.
We had to take our naps and stuff.
But both of you are still active and, going at a remarkable pace. I mean, I'll try to keep up with Buzz around the studio here, and sometimes it's a challenge for me. And that's just inspiring to see that you guys still, are fueled by by that rock and roll dream that you mentioned in that song. And you mentioned, I don't know how seriously that you would like to do a volume 2 of the Billy and Buzz record, but what is in your immediate future? I know obviously the release and trying to promote that album, but what else are you trying to work on in the next?
Well, we're playing Knoxville October 25th, 2018. Yeah. We've got a gig. We've got one show at the Holiday Inn. We don't have the particulars on where it is, but it'll be on the website. Be on buzzcason.com for sure. Should I reveal what we've kind of talked about just the other day?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It may be too big of a project for us to take on, but we actually kicked around doing the Beatles, and we would put our arrangements to them, and that may be foolish to do, but we're in it for the fun, and
that's
we're not having. It's like Jack Clement said: if we ain't having fun, we're not doing our job.
Yeah.
But that's just a pipe dream. I mean,
I think I said something on this. It's in the liner notes of the album. It says, "It's like, why would anybody want to do that?" And I think I kind of live like that. Why would anybody want to do that? I don't know, but I would.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's fun to me.
And also in the case of the Beatles, which is such a vast catalog, there's so many great songs. They're not necessarily the top 20 Beatles songs that are just beautiful songs too, that can probably, if you come up with a creative way of redoing them, would be really cool.
Because like you said, they're good songs. And I'm sure, it's always a thrill when someone does your song. And Paul McCartney has mentioned that, and Lennon, but I don't care who you are, how big a writer you are. If you write a song, someone does it, it sure makes you feel good. It's
somebody like that. I mean, Lennon McCartney mentioned I Can Help, or record Soldier of Love, which is like
Absolutely.
That's like, if you ask me, that's about as good as he gets
Absolutely.
by your most well-known peers.
It'll probably take us longer than 5 years to do the Beatles.
Oh yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
I'm kind of encouraging Billy to do a new solo record himself. So maybe we can
Well, I'll double down on
get
that.
going too. You know.
Yeah. Well, that's such a great thing with you having Creative Workshop Studio here and access to such great recording space.
Absolutely.
Well, I didn't mention that earlier, but we're recording here at Creative Workshop in Berry Hill, Tennessee, which is Buzz's studio that he's owned since 1970.
CreativeWorkshop.com, I believe it is.
Creative Workshop
Recording.com. Yeah, that's right.
So,
Well, Billy's got quite a magical little recording space in his home where
It's nice to work at home.
it's a
And,
beautiful baby
and wonderful
grand you
thing
have,
about
too.
Pro Tools, and I'm sure a lot of people would tell you that now, writers and whatever. You know, it's,
Absolutely. I'm setting up a little studio at my house now too, just so I can
and you could do something right there, you know.
because Creative Workshop has been getting so popular.
Well,
that
I know. Well,
can't
we
get
came
in.
in here with some of those tracks and did some things, you know.
Yeah, and you have a great video to one of your songs off of here, which is "I'm Looking for Someone to Love," which was
Buzz
maybe
directed that.
and it's funny and classy at the same time, and the great Scotty Moore is featured in it before he passed away.
Well,
and
we asked if he'd mind doing that, and he said he'd love to do it.
Yeah, we owe a lot of the majority of the credit of that video to Mark Harper from
Yes.
Birmingham, Alabama, who just did a great job of shooting that. We shot it in 2 days, going out to Scotty's house and went over to the factory, the Marathon Motor Factory, and did a couple of scenes, and then we did Parthenon at night. But Mark is not only a great camera person, but he's a great editor, and he really put that thing together well. And we've got a lot of hits on it, and it was just really fun to do.
And you guys used his photo he took on that day of the video shoot as the cover of the new record too. And while we talk about the record, let me just make sure we get credit where credit is due. Jeremy Fetzer of Steelism created the artwork for the record, and we got Colin Winery on guitar, Matt Krause and Steve Holland on drums, and it was recorded and mixed by the one and only Joe Funderburg here at the Creative Workshop.
Yes, Joe did a wonderful job on it, and he also mastered the record. So a lot of great talents were involved in putting this little project together, for sure.
Yeah, and I won't keep you here much longer. I just want to thank you so much for being here, being my guest, launching season 2 of the Crazy Chester Radio Hour. It couldn't have asked for better guests to do that. I know Buzz was my very first guest in the first episode, so I like to stick with that theme. Maybe the third season will kick off with the two of you and have Donnie Fritts join you to kick up.
Should have had him
season 3.
call today.
Yeah,
we
remember
should have
last
called
time
him.
he called.
Right.
He called in.
And he did part of the interview with us right then and there. That was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you'll bear with me again, I'll always have you back. So
Well, I sure will.
Thanks for having us.
thank you so
Andreas.
much.
It's been
Thanks for
fun.
being an inspiration to me, and thank you for bringing new life to the catalog of Buddy Holly. And I wish you the best of luck with the release of Billy and Buzz Sing Buddy.
Thank you.
All the best to you
Thank
guys.
Is it Crazy Chester?
Well, so
Or is it Andres?
It's still Andreas.
Okay, Andres. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Buzz.
Thank you.
This was the 34th episode of the Crazy Chester Radio Hour that kicked off Season 2. Thanks to my awesome guests, Buzz Cason and Billy Swan, for spending the past hour with me. Their new record, Billy and Buzz Sing Buddy, is out now on Arena Recordings. Get yourself a copy. It's one great record that I can highly recommend. Stay tuned for all the further episodes coming out every week, all through the fall, winter, and spring. This episode was recorded at Buzz Cason's Creative Workshop recording studio in the Berry Hill neighborhood of Nashville. Thanks for listening.